Welcome to the show. It is Tuesday, October 28th, the last waiver wire show before the NFL trade deadline on November 4th. Ooh, actually, is that true?
No,
never mind. But there could be some trades between now and then. Should check the calendar.
or the calculator.
Yeah, it wouldn't have helped. What's +7? Anyway, I'm Adam. That's Jamie. That's Dave. We're off to a great start. This is Fantasy Football Today presented by BetMGM. Make it legendary. We're going to give you our top priorities. Tyrone Tracy is available in a lot of leagues, but it's an interesting week because you could have guys like Travis Hunter out there, Chris Godwin out there, Oronde Gadsden could be out there. So, they're rostered in between 70 and 80% of CBS Sports leagues. A lot of times that means about 50, 60% on the other sites. Oh, good morning, Jamie. How's the waiver wire looking this week?
It was a busy one, with the 4 teams on a bye, with the injuries, with the players who are on a bye, who I think you want to roster going into their bye or pick up going into their bye, and then trying to maneuver through some of the potential trades that could happen and the fallback from that may occur as well. So it was a fun column to write, and hopefully you'll enjoy reading it.
Oh yeah. And we'll enjoy talking about it. We'll do it right now. We'll do it on CBS Sports Network at 1 p.m. Eastern. So with that said, Jamie, give me the top 3 priorities.
Yeah, I was thinking about that before the show started. Obviously, Tracy's going to be 1 just because he's going to be a starting running back for the rest of the season. I think I'm going to put Zonovan Knight 2 just because you can use him for this week as a potential number 2 running back, especially with what the running back position looks like. And then 3, I'm going to go back to something I did last week, which did not work out as well, but I think it will this week, just based on the matchup, is the Rams DST. You get them for a 1-week situation against potentially Tyler Shuck, or it could be a struggling Spencer Rattler, but they're at home and they're the number 1 DST to add, and most likely the number 1 DST to use this week.
All right, Tyrone Tracy Jr., Zonovan Knight facing Dallas, and the Rams facing the New Orleans Saints. We still don't know who their quarterback's going to be. Dave, how about you? Give me the top priorities.
Tracy's number 1. It's just a huge opportunity potentially for the rest of the year. You don't see a lot of running backs with this type of opportunity available off the waiver wire. I think it comes down to, and we've heard this line before on the show, what do you need? Do you need a running back badly for week number 9? Do you have a running back that's on bye in week number 9 and you can't get your hands on Tyrone Tracy? I think for 1 week, Zonovan Knight would be that guy. So I guess he would be the second guy. But if you don't need a running back that badly, Troy Franklin is still out there in 38% of leagues. He was excellent last week. Just absolutely bounced back after a very up and down performance in week number 7. And then there's guys that might be okay rest of season. The Tyjae Spears, the Shimray DKs, Christian Watson's going to be pretty popular. But I think it comes down to what you need. If you need a DST, then the Rams make a ton of sense. If you need a quarterback, you can look for one of the guys that's mostly owned, but Trevor Lawrence gets the Raiders. It's a pretty good matchup. He's available in half the leagues. His receivers should be healthy. It really comes down to just what do you need after you put in your claim for Tyrone Tracy.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind taking a chance on a guy who's been pretty bad this year, but Kyler Murray, if he's playing against the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah. Cowboys have given us a top 12 quarterback every single week against them. It's without fail that you would have to, who was it? Jaden Daniels got hurt in that game. If you combine Daniels and Mariota that week, they would have been top 12. So it's a little bit, A's or statty. But yeah, just a lot of guys out there.
So you say opposing quarterbacks.
Yeah,
have given you.
There you go. They were opposing quarterbacks have been top 12 against the Cowboys.
I have to write that several times a year. So.
Yeah, I'm sure. Hey, listen, Troy Franklin. We were doing some Cortland Sutton research on Beyond the Box Score yesterday. Troy Franklin has 2 fewer targets than Cortland Sutton. These are the red zone targets for the Broncos. Troy Franklin has 12. Cortland Sutton has 5. In the green zone, Troy Franklin has 6. Cortland Sutton has 3, and they have the same amount of end zone targets. He's very involved in important parts of the field. It's not a perfect player, obviously. He's very up and down, but
the thing that's frustrating about Franklin is they get the Texans this week in the 1 week that Marvin Mims may not play, which will only help Franklin just a smidge, but it would help him. And then they come back and their schedule gets great. And so the thing that I fear is that Franklin's got 18 targets the last 2 weeks. They struggle to throw the ball, especially because they're going on the road where Bo Nix hasn't been as good. And then people drop him. And then you're spending too much FAB on the wrong week for him.
Yeah.
So if you get him, you got to hang on to him.
Exactly.
Like, looking for commitment here.
If you get him, don't get frustrated and drop him after this. But look, like you said, he's not a perfect player. The touchdown 2 games ago against the Giants was fluky. I thought he would have a good game against the Cowboys this week. I know we kind of went back and forth on Mims versus Franklin, and Franklin clearly had the big game. It's just a matter of like, will they be consistent? These guys, especially when the matchup's a little bit tougher.
And then what if Travis Hunter were out there? If you were going Travis Hunter versus Tyrone Tracy, what do you think?
I think Dave said it best. That kind of comes down to what you need, so I would probably prioritize Tracy just because I don't know if Hunter's great game is going to carry over. Now, there is some thought, obviously, to him building off that. He's a rookie wide receiver going into his bye week, and so you'd love to see what you saw as great game bye week and then come out of it playing well. Will they move him around a little bit more or just keep him in one spot? You did get the Diana Rossini report from The Athletic that the Jaguars are listening to offers for Brian Thomas Jr. I don't think they would trade him. That'd be crazy, but still, that's out there. So they both have the chance to be very solid rest of season. It's just a matter, I think, what it comes down to. In terms of just player, I probably would rather have Hunter, but situation, I'd rather have Tracy.
I'm going to give you just one more player that I want to highlight real quick. Then we'll talk about Fab. It's Sam Darnold. Now, we always know the problem with Sam Darnold. They're facing the Commanders, and you figure they might be able to, let's see if Jaden Daniels plays, but they might be able to just run the ball. Commanders have a good run defense, but they don't throw a lot. Well, the Commanders, at least going into last night, and I'm guessing it's the same, the Commanders were giving up the most yards per attempt in the NFL, and Sam Darnold leads the NFL in yards per attempt. And Mahomes threw 34 passes last night, but before that, you had Jordan Love, Geno Smith, Michael Penix, Caleb Williams, and Dak Prescott all have good games.
22 plus fantasy points.
Yeah, and none of them threw more than 31 passes. So it's just
they lost their best pass rusher prior to last week.
They did. It's just a really bad pass defense, and Darnold is so efficient that he might not have to throw that much. He might be able to do well even.
He's my number one quarterback to add for this week. It's not for this week, but it's not just for this week. His upcoming schedule is also very good. So, to compare him and Lawrence's schedule gets really brutal after this week. So those are the top two guys to go get. But if you're going to prioritize one quarterback for me, it would be Darnold based on what he's done and what he hopefully should be able to do. All
right. We are on CBS Sports Network at 1 p.m. Eastern. So hop on over there. Watch us live. You can see the show on YouTube, youtube.com/fantasyfootball today after the fact. And I don't know if that one's going to be in the live tab, but if you ever want to see one of our shows that you missed, click the live tab if you can't find it, and you'll get the full-length shows. All right. Anyway, and we'll be reading your questions on CBS Sports Network. So how much fab, Dave, are we talking here for Tyrone Tracy? And then we'll talk about the rest.
If you need a running back bad enough, you're struggling in your league, you're 4-4, 3-5, it's time to empty the clip.
Compare him to, I was thinking about it, who do I think Tyrone Tracy might be like rest of season in terms of fantasy production? I was thinking maybe like a Ken Walker.
I'd say Jaylen Warren.
I hope so. That's a pretty consistent, reliable RB2. And then you think to yourself, if Jaylen Warren were on my waiver wire, how much would I spend? And I'd spend a lot to get that. So, all right, you're thinking Jaylen Warren. Jamie, how about you? Give me a Tyrone Tracy comp just in terms of fantasy production.
I think, we talked about this yesterday on, the early waiver wire. It was, I think, unfortunately, it's going to be somewhere along the lines like a better version of Tony Pollard and Chase Brown at his worst. And I think Ken Walker's a good one. Guys that you hope are going to play well, have the opportunity to dominate touches, but don't necessarily produce like we want. So I thought what you said yesterday was apropos, that what he did at the end of last season was 14.5 PPR points or more in 3 of his last 6 games. But this is a better Giants offense, and so with Andrew Thomas there and what Scadaboo has done. So Scadaboo since week 2 has been 13 PPR points or more in every game. Can he get to that? Sure. If he does, then he's Jaylen Warren plus, so it's there's a lot to like about this situation. I just don't know if he'll produce like Scadaboo. So I would probably lower it to like around 11. So, basically a 2-point difference. And yeah, that puts him better than those guys because Chase Brown was inconsistent. Tony Pollard obviously was a disaster, so he's in that low end number 2, high end flex range, and you're probably going to start him more weeks than not.
Yeah, I mean, Cam Scadaboo was RB7 per game since the Tracy injury or since week 3. Going into the Philadelphia game, he's such a good touchdown scorer. We can't expect Tracy to be that good. My concern, and we'll move on because I don't want to spend the whole show on Tracy, but my concern, I talked about this with you, Dave, yesterday, is, I don't know that he's going to be the short yardage / goal line back. I have no idea. I mean, when he was healthy earlier this year, it was Cam Scatterbo. They might use Singletary there. Last year, after Singletary came back from injury, it was a pretty even split. Not a lot of carries between the two of them from the 3-yard line or closer, but I think it was like Singletary had one more, or Tracy had one more, or whatever it was. But I just want to throw that out there because that could be Singletary's role.
It's also been Jackson Dart's role at times.
True. And then, of course, there's the 5 fumbles from Tracy last year. So not a perfect prospect. He only lost 2 of them, but he fumbled 5 times. But
it's not a bad idea in deeper leagues to pick up Singletary.
Yeah. All right. But look, this is an opportunity to get a running back. Now, let me ask you this. Is he that much better than Trey Benson? Just to add right now.
I think
I would probably rather have Benson rest of season than Tracy, even though we've seen Tracy do this.
We've seen Benson do it a little bit, not as much as Tracy. But
okay.
I feel like it's a little bit better of an opportunity for Benson eventually. The problem is that Benson's only available in like a third of CBS leagues right now.
Well, he's 55% rostered on Yahoo. So a lot of people out there, and ESPN and Yahoo are usually pretty similar. I'll check that for Trey Benson.
So if you need the running back, if you need a running back this week, you can't use Benson. He's not eligible to play. He can come back as soon as week 10. And I'd rather have Benson than Tracy rest of season.
The one thing just to keep in mind is we have not heard a timeline for Benson. Hopefully we do this week with Arizona coming back from their bye, and somebody will ask about it. And there's some questions. I'm seeing it in the chat right now. So they released Michael Carter yesterday. The Cardinals did. The ESPN writer for the Cardinals said that this could just be a procedural move, that they're going to bring him back. So just keep that in mind. DeMercado was injured going into their bye week. They used Dearness Johnson. So there's a lot of things at play here. I think just if you're talking about short-term versus long-term, and you have the ability to do so on other sites, is if you could pick up both Knight and Benson, and then you just sort of use Knight this week, and then Benson hopefully when he's ready to play. But again, when he got hurt, it was considered a 4 to 6 week injury, and this will now be week 5, but week 4 from a game perspective when they placed him on IR. So I would hope that he's trending in the direction of playing in week 10 when he's eligible to return.
Okay. I would hope so, but because we don't know that, it might make you lean Tyrone Tracy, which would be understandable if they were both coming back this week, or even if we knew Benson was coming back next week. I think you hear our guys would favor Trey Benson, but we don't know. It could be longer than that for Benson. All right. Are you spending more than $5 in FAB for anyone else this week? $5 of your original, 5% of your original budget?
I think it just comes down to what you need. And like Dave said, we're at the point in the season where you have to sort of save yourself a little bit. And so it doesn't do you any good to go into week 10 with the majority of your FAB. So depends on what you need and what's out there. You have 2 pretty prominent quarterbacks not playing this week, 3 if you want to throw in Justin Fields, but without Jalen Hurts and Baker Mayfield, that position could be of need. So you might need to spend a little bit more there. Tight end really is not anybody that jumps off the page, for this week in particular. Now, if you want to get Fannin or Njoku or Taylor for the upcoming weeks, or as you said, Adam, if Gadsden's available, that's a different story. But I think just in terms of like our criteria, Colston Loveland and Juwan Johnson aren't exactly break the bank type of guys. And then at receiver, it's kind of been the same story all season long. So Franklin in a great spot. He's been one of these guys already, that we talked about. He was one of these guys we said earlier this season to add.
Week 2.
So yeah, it's just one of those spots. Like you can let somebody else spend on Franklin and you get DK. You can let somebody else spend on those 2 guys and then go get Trey Tucker or go get a Darius Slayton or go get another player that could just sort of fill that 8 to 12 point per game range, maybe more. Christian Watson, Josh Downs, these guys have been, in a good spot now for Watson or been in a good spot for Downs. Like there's just so many guys at that position that you don't want to necessarily waste the FAB on, which is kind of what I was getting at with Franklin earlier. Like you may spend too much on him this week. He disappoints you because it's the Texans, and then somebody else picks him up because you're frustrated and you drop him, and then he comes back in week 10 and has a great game.
Let me amend your question, Adam. How many players would I spend more than 10% of my FAB on? And I think the answer is 1. It's Tracy. And again, like if Gadsden's out there, Travis Hunter's out there, obviously you're going to spend a little bit more than that. But Zonovan Knight and all the receivers we've talked about, Tyjae Spears, like maybe between 5 to 10%, but not a huge break the bank unless it's just one of these deep leagues where there's nobody on waivers and somehow, some way, these guys are there.
Yeah.
I do think you make a case for Knight though, just because of his
1 week rental. Sure.
1 week opportunity. Like he could be the guy that helps you win a week.
Yeah, but the thing is, it could be more than 1 week. The problem is for Knight is next week is Seattle, and they have the best run defense in football. He could catch some passes. Like Trey Benson had 5 catches against Seattle that was Benson's only game without James Conner before he got injured. It was 8 carries for 35 yards, 5 catches, 19 yards. But if Knight had 2 really good matchups, because again, we can't guarantee Benson's coming back in week 10, it'd be one thing, but he has a great matchup this week, Zonovan Knight. Cowboys are 31st against running backs. Then he has Seattle, and they give up a lot of receiving stuff to running backs, but they are so good against the run. It's insane. So that's something to keep in mind.
I wouldn't even look at it though as a 2-week thing. I'd look at it as, can he help me win a week? And if that's the case, I'll spend a little bit more for him.
I'm going to just read a few questions here from the chat. Tracy or Woody Marks rest of season?
You asked this yesterday on FFT Express. I think if we were going to this knowing that Nick Chubb was out of the way, it would be Marks easily. But I'm going to go Tracy just because of his potential for touches.
I'll say Marks.
Would you drop Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt for Tracy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Charbonnet or Zonovan Knight?
Charbonnet rest of season.
Would you drop Quentin Johnston for Tracy?
Probably.
Yeah. If I'm good at wide receiver, I guess I would.
And then Franklin Stein, little team name Tuesday here for Troy Franklin. That's good. And it's thematic. It's Halloween week.
I think he got bar mitzvah too, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I started watching Candyman. I've never seen the original Candyman. It's pretty good. Looking forward to finishing that one, hopefully tonight. And looking forward to finishing the show when we come back. We'll be right back after this break on Fantasy Football Today with your news and notes and the top 3 players at each position.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
Would any of you would you be too superstitious to say Candyman 5 times and then turn the light off into the mirror?
Is it 5 times or 3 times?
5 times. That surprised me. That was only 3. 5 times
I thought it was 3.
No, it's 5. It's a commitment. I don't think I'd do it. You know, like he's probably not going to come, but I'm not going to take the chance.
Yeah, can't do it.
All right, news and notes. Lamar Jackson, they are very confident that he's going to play this week. We don't know who the Saints quarterback is going to be this week at the Rams. Aaron Glenn.
Look at this.
Yeah, I know. Look at this cool graphic. Aaron Glenn did not name a starter for the Jets after their Week 9 bye.
Oh, that's the dumbest thing ever.
Brock Purdy's status is unknown. He's at the Giants. You could get a nice quarterback streaming option, whether it's Mac Jones or if Purdy's available this week. Joe Flacco's got the shoulder injury. He came back, so I'm assuming he's fine. Michael Penix is day-to-day. Carson Wentz is out for the season with a shoulder injury. J.J. McCarthy will start this week at Detroit, and Bryce Young could be back this week at Green Bay. Running back, Scadaboo out for the year. All right, so it's actually pretty good news. Quinshon Judkins and Saquon Barkley, it looks like they're going to be fine. I can't say that with certainty, but that's the indications that we're getting. So I will ask you, are you guys going to be making any claims for Tank Bigsby or Dylan Sampson this week?
Yes.
Especially if I've got those guys, the starters in front of them on my team.
Okay. They're not going to be your number 1 claims, though.
No, but there are a lot of players that aren't playing this week. Jamie alluded to it with the tight ends. There are a lot of players who aren't playing this week who are worth picking up just to stash.
Okay.
Those are
Pacheco left with a knee injury super late in the game. He seemed fine afterward. Kamara's got nicked up. We haven't heard anything. I wouldn't be surprised. He's not going to practice Wednesday, but we'll see on Kamara. Think about Devin Neal. I don't think Kamara's going to miss time, but it's not out of the question. Let's see. And then Dave was tweeting about this all day yesterday that Rico Dowdle could be his time now. Dave Canales was talking about it and said we can't ignore how good Rico Dowdle has been. We have, basically respect Chuba Hubbard. Chuba's not going to go away, but we could definitely see more of a favorable split for Dowdle this week at Green Bay.
It's so ridiculous.
With 3 offensive linemen missing against a very good run defense.
Right.
Don't know if all 3 linemen will be missing.
Had to cater to Chuba for 2 games.
Yeah.
Just to make sure, I guess.
Well, he was pretty honest about it when Chuba came back. Like, he wanted to find out what, he said he wanted to talk to other coaches about what teams have done in this situation. And, he felt that he needed to be loyal to Chuba and give him an opportunity to see what he can do. And now he realizes that Dowdle was still running better than Chuba in the 2 games that they've been together. I mean, look, sometimes we get frustrated by these situations, but you also have to appreciate the honesty that he was trying to see what his lead running back could do coming off of injury, and sees that, okay, the best chance for them to win is Rico Dowdle. And look, it's 2 games. They probably beat the Jets with the split.
I was about to say, I don't think it cost them anything.
And they lose the game against Buffalo unless Rico Dowdle goes for 200 again, which he wasn't going to do against the Bills.
Right. All right, wide receiver news. Drake London is day-to-day. They're at New England. Puka Nacua practiced. He's expected to play against the Saints. Terry McLaurin left last night with a quad injury. He's optimistic about playing this week. Nico Collins is trending toward a return, according to Aaron Wilson of KPRC2. Travis Hunter could get wide receiver 1 treatment in the second half, according to ESPN. And Hunter's about 75% rostered on Yahoo and ESPN as well. Luther Burden is in the concussion protocol. Olamide Zaccheaus is day-to-day with a knee injury, and they've got Cincinnati this week, so you've got some opportunities here for the Bears. Maybe you want to start DJ Moore this week. Marvin Mims is in the
week, baby.
Yeah,
I hope so. It's to see if we'll
it
see.
Has to be the week. Has to be.
Komet status is obviously going to matter there.
Sure, that's fair.
Marvin Mims.
Yeah, but with both the 3 and 4 receivers being potentially out, you could see a lot more 2 tight end sets where they're both involved.
I think 11 tight ends have scored double-digit PPR fantasy points against the Bengals in 8 games. It's crazy.
I think all the Steelers did.
Yeah. Cedric Tillman expected to return after the bye. Rashid Shaheed, I think he's fine. Tyler Lockett signing with the Raiders. Pittsburgh signing Marquez Valdez-Scantling. And Tutu Atwell is on IR. Maybe that's why it was such a bad call by me 2 weeks ago when I started Tutu Atwell. Giants tight end Daniel Bellinger left in the 3rd quarter. I mentioned the 3 Panthers offensive linemen with injuries. San Francisco lost an offensive lineman to an injury. Pittsburgh's guard Isaac Seumalo left with a chest injury. And Laramie Tunsil last night, he left with a hamstring injury. And then the big news on defense, Patrick Surtain.
McLaurin too, right?
Which one?
In McLaurin.
I did say McLaurin, yeah. Patrick Surtain left with a shoulder injury. I'm sorry, guys. Who's Washington playing this week? I didn't put their schedule in.
Washington is playing Seattle.
Oh, right. Okay, so they may not have Tunsil, and we'll see about McLaurin. Like I said, McLaurin's optimistic about playing. Patrick Surtain, week to week. I think they have Houston this week, right?
Yep.
They do.
Okay, so Nico Collins, if he plays, will not be shadowed by Patrick Surtain. Buffalo defensive tackle Ed Oliver's out for not necessarily the season, but he's out for a while. I'm going to skip the defense. Let's the big ones. Atlanta's super beat up. They're at New England this week. On paper, just doesn't seem like the same matchup that it was. They got a lot of injuries, but we'll check on 3 guys could come back this week. All right. Top 3 players at each position. Jamie, who are the top 3 quarterbacks to get?
Sam Darnold would be 1. So if you need a quarterback for this week, I like the setup for him taking on Washington and then long-term again. So after he gets Washington in week 9, he gets Arizona week 10, Tennessee in week 12. I forget how they play in week 11. And then Minnesota in week 13. So like the upcoming schedule for him. Trevor Lawrence would be 2nd. Like Dave mentioned, he gets a great matchup against the Raiders, but then it's Houston and then the Chargers after that. So don't necessarily want to start Lawrence in those games. But for 1 week, he could be good. And then I put Justin Fields 3rd, just with the hope that he remains the starter. I know it's not the easiest schedule coming out of the bye for them. But when Justin Fields has Garrett Wilson, and you know what he's capable of with his legs, he can get you 22, he can get you 29, he can get you 30. So if you need somebody else for this week, the 3rd quarterback would be Tua. How much you want to buy into Tua, who's had 4 solid games, 3 crappy ones, and 1 in between. So 1 with 16 points. He's had 3 with 8 or less, and then 4 with 19 or more. So with his matchup this week on Thursday against the Ravens, as we saw, the Ravens defense did look a little bit better, taking on Caleb Williams, who was at the goal line 25 times and couldn't get a touchdown.
Yeah.
Maybe Tua, building off the Falcons game, is someone you want to buy into as the 3rd quarterback for this week. But for the 2 that are widely available would be Darnold and Lawrence. If you want to throw Kyler Murray in there, obviously he's somebody that you could put as a top 3 priority as well.
Yeah, I'll just ask you that. Kyler Murray or Sam Darnold? Who would you prefer? Kyler's got the Cowboys.
I would prefer Darnold just because of the long-term standing, because I like the matchup for them this week as well. So I think both guys can have a good week this week, but I feel more comfortable with Darnold moving forward. But certainly Kyler's right there.
Yeah, like if you've got a quarterback who's on bye, or if you just want somebody for 1 week for whatever reason, I think Kyler makes sense. And I think you can make the case for Lawrence over Darnold. But you're right about long-term. Like if you're streaming quarterbacks, Darnold could be your guy. They play the Rams in week 11, so that might not be a game I'd be really excited to start Sam Darnold in.
By the way, we don't know that Kyler Murray is.
That's true.
But so he's
a Texas guy who's been resting. I think he's gearing up for this game.
Well, you had Schefter tweet on Monday, expected to return Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, I believe Bryce Young maybe was the other one.
JJ McCarthy.
Oh, JJ McCarthy, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So we are expecting Kyler Murray to play. What last thing on that before we get to the running backs. So if Brock Purdy, what do you think about the Niners quarterbacks? As the Giants have been pretty bad against the last 3 quarterbacks they've faced. It's just Hurts twice and Bo Nix, and especially the last 2. It's coincided with these secondary injuries. They suffered another one. What do you think about streaming Mac Jones or Purdy if he's available? How would they compare to this group of Darnold, Lawrence, and even Kyler?
Purdy would be one for me.
Sure.
Okay.
At the position. Jones, it just feels as if they're using him more as a game manager. I get it, the last 2 games. Atlanta at full strength. Houston obviously has been very good, so hard to judge. Prior to that, he was much better, at least in the first 2 starts of this 4-game stretch. Or at least, the first start of this 4-game stretch. He's kind of been, trailing in the wrong direction. But I don't know how healthy he's been. So I would put him behind Darnold and Lawrence, for example. Yeah. But Purdy, I'd feel more comfortable with if he comes back.
But he's the guy that I guess I would start with in deeper leagues because I would assume that Kyler, Darnold, Lawrence are all rostered already. But if he ends up not playing, then you've got to go back to the waiver wire and look for a Tua, Mariota, McCarthy. It's going to get ugly, but Mac Jones would be my placeholder at quarterback.
Okay. So listen, football fans, fantasy playoffs are approaching. You got to bring that playoff energy to your pro football bets all season long. This Pro Football Boost Pack gives you 3 ways to boost your payout on a winning bet. Just log into your BetMGM account to receive your Boost Pack. Then place any pro football bet and apply one of the tokens. Make sure to bet up to the minimum stake, odds, and legs specified on the token. If your boosted bet hits, you'll score a bigger payout. From opening kickoffs to game-winning drives, this Pro Football Boost Pack is your ticket to unforgettable moments this season. Don't wait on the sidelines. Join the action with BetMGM. Dave, who are the top 3 running backs?
You might have heard us talking about Tyrone Tracy earlier in the show. He's numero uno. I almost think regardless of what you need, you should prioritize him just because of the opportunity that's in front of him. I've got Zonovan Knight 2. I've got Tyjae Spears 3. But if you can stash, arguably the best stash you can make this week is Isaiah Davis, 72% available. We just saw him play really well against Cincinnati. And again, it's Cincinnati, but Breece Hall's on the trade block. The trade deadline is, sometime around a week from now, depending on what Adam's calendar and calculator says. But Isaiah Davis can end up being the lead running back for the Jets for a couple of weeks at least. And then when Braylon Allen comes back, he could still be the lead guy there. And he's out there 72% of leagues. A great running back to stash at least through the trade deadline.
Do you think we've talked a lot of, hey, Rico Dowdle needs more touches. He's been better. Do you think that there's any of that building for Tyjae Spears? Because he has been so much better than Tony Pollard.
He's played more snaps than Pollard since he's come back from injury. It's been really close, but even the fact that it's been really close is good. He certainly looks like the better running back. He's the guy they prefer to have on the field when they're chasing points. He's a good receiver out of the backfield. So Pollard's another guy who could low-key get traded because I don't think he's a bad player. He's just in a bad situation on a team that's going to be a negative game script all the time. And so whoever that running back is that's going to play in that type of situation in Tennessee, that's the one that I'd want to at least have on my bench. I don't know if I want to count on Spears as a starter. He only has 1 game with double-digit PPR points since coming back, and it was last week because he scored a touchdown. But I do think that there is an opportunity for his role to grow.
All right, wide receiver news, wide receiver priorities. Jamie, who are the top 3?
Franklin, we mentioned. I think he's worth adding based on 18 targets the last 2 weeks, and hopefully it's something that is going to continue to build off of. Tamir Dike would be second, just based on what he's done the last 2 weeks. And there's some thought that Calvin Ridley gets traded also, but he's dealing with a hamstring injury, so he's been out the last 2 games. We don't know when he's going to return. and I put Darius Slayton third. I think we feel a lot different about him if he catches that 68-yard touchdown, and we're looking at the guy that we thought was going to fill in for Malik Neighbors. And now that they may be throwing the ball a little bit more because the run game could get stagnant, I think Slayton has an opportunity to hopefully finish the season strong after coming back from missing the previous 2 games with a hamstring injury.
Not even a question. Travis Hunter would be ahead of these 3, right?
Yes. And, you can throw out these 3 names and you want to go Christian Watson, Josh Downs, and Trey Tucker. And I have no problem with that either. It's just one of these positions where it's not one guy standing so much taller over the field that you can just let somebody else spend their fab someplace else, and you can go a little bit cheaper and find some of these guys that are going to continue to produce. And in the case of Watson, could be the number 1 receiver for the Packers. In the case of Slayton, could be the number 1 receiver for the Giants. In the case of Downs, prior to his concussion, was a top 3 guy for me. That week was number 1 for Dave. Just looking at the way Daniel Jones is playing, he's got a great opportunity. Also, just so many guys in this position. Yeah. Juwan Jennings is available in our range that we talk about, 64% rostered. And we know when Brock Purdy comes back, he's going to do well. Plus, again, Atlanta and Houston, 7 targets each of those 2 weeks. Did not do much with it. Now he gets the free space essentially in the Giants. So if Purdy comes back, he could go nuts. So there's just so many guys available at this spot. I just wouldn't spend too much fab on it and kind of let the position sort of dictate itself for me if I needed to pick somebody up at a wide receiver spot this week.
Okay. Those Titans wide receivers are fairly interesting too, because when's Calvin Ridley going to come back? We mentioned probably not going to get traded, but
well, he might.
Yeah, he might. They have a bye next week. Cam Ward's averaging 250 passing yards per game in his last 4 games, which would be 10th best, for the full season. I'm not saying he's going to do that rest of the year, but they actually are throwing the ball a lot, and they're throwing for a lot of yards. They're just not scoring. Okay, and tight ends, Dave, who are the top 3 tight ends?
Double check for Oronde Gadsden, but he's already rostered in well over 70% of CBS leagues. Juwan Johnson's my favorite. If you need a tight end this week, he's out there in 2/3 of leagues. Otherwise, I'm looking to grab a tight end to stash. It's Njoku. He's also on the trade block. Harold Fannin, whose stock would go crazy if Njoku is traded, and Mason Taylor, who's most widely available of these tight ends at 70%. And had a great finish for the Jets against Cincinnati. Hopefully he can build on that and see some more regular targets moving forward.
Yeah, it's weird. A lot of the tight ends we usually look at for streaming, some of them are on bye, but also you're getting Bowers. Hopefully you're getting Bowers, McBride, Laporta back. So perhaps this is a week where people won't.
And AJ Barner.
And AJ Barner, yeah. All right. Well, now it's time for coverage you can count on. Sponsored by Nationwide. Jamie, give me a DST to stream this week.
The Rams. No better defense than the Rams. Taking on the Saints, they've been miserable. You saw what Tampa Bay's defense did against them. Spencer Rattler's a turnover machine. He's going to get sacked a lot, especially since they lost their center 2 weeks ago. If Tyler Shuck starts, it's a brutal spot to put a rookie on the road. I know the environment's not bad, but the defense is just, playing fantastic. They just added a cornerback as well, making the trade for McCreary. So I think it's going to be very difficult for this Saints offense. And you mentioned it, Kamara got banged up in the game. If he's out, not that he's been doing very much, but it just could be very, very ugly. And the Rams defense should be a league winner.
I love the Rams DST this week, but if the Seahawks are out there and both of them are right around 40%, Rams a little bit higher, a little bit more available, I might take Seattle because their DST has played great all year. They've got a great matchup against the Commanders, especially if Jaden Daniels doesn't come back. I know it looks like that he might come back. And then after the Commanders, who do they've got? They've got Arizona. The Rams on the road will be tough. At Tennessee is a dream matchup. Minnesota at Atlanta. I mean, they'll take you right up to the fantasy playoffs. They play Carolina in week 17 too. So maybe they'll be your 1A DST, and you'll find a second DST for those matchups that they have against the Rams and one other tough game. Indianapolis is in the fantasy playoffs. That'll be tough on them. But I might prefer the Seahawks long-term to the Rams.
Yeah, and there's also Jamie's list of DSTs. The Rams are 1. The Lions facing Minnesota. They've been pretty good this year, the Lions, especially at home.
That's McCarthy with the beat-up offensive line, too.
Yeah,
yes,
right.
Huge.
Seahawks are 3rd. Jaguars get the Raiders. It's pretty good. This is one of the better weeks, I feel like, talking about these DST streamers. So that's something to keep in mind when if you're putting in fab bids. Is that, the Rams are obviously the prize here, but that doesn't mean that you have to spend a lot, because you could just default to the Lions or the Seahawks or the Jaguars and be fine.
And to Dave's point about the Seahawks, I feel the same about the Rams. Like, these are defenses that have played well all season long. You can get by with them rest of season.
Jamie, that was coverage you can count on, sponsored by Nationwide. Jamie, kickers, Dad.
You mentioned on our show, or no, you mentioned off the air, because I said you didn't ask me about the kickers. Brandon McManus, so taking on the Panthers at home. Kaimi Fairbairn, which should be a low-scoring, potentially field goal fest against the Broncos. And then, how do you pronounce the Patriots kicker? Andres
Borregales.
He's coming off a strong game, and Jake Bates, just avoid the environments and the weather, kicking indoors.
All right, we'll take a break, and we'll talk about the shallow league guys. Perhaps the most interesting part of this week's waiver wire, honestly. Bucs wide receivers, Travis Hunter, Brock Purdy. We've spoken about a lot of Gadsden. I think he's about, 76% rostered or something in CBS leagues. We'll talk about that, and then the deep league guys after this.
What's he like? The happy-faced killer?
You mean my dad? Be glad you never have to know.
You think that you're so much better than me.
You're just like your old man.
I am not like you at all.
Okay, Jamie, so the hypothetical now for you is basically the dream waiver wire scenario. Everybody who's rostered in fewer than 80% of leagues is available. So that's Travis Hunter, that's Arondé Gadsden. I'm looking at Yahoo. Arondé Gadsden is rostered in 62% of Yahoo leagues. I'll check ESPN right now. He is rostered in 68%. So he's out there in a lot of our listeners' leagues. Yeah, I mentioned Brock Purdy. Joe Flacco might be in this list. You know the names. Who are the best of the best that, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're on waivers?
The best of the best.
Yeah.
So I'll skip the quarterbacks because they're not the best of the best. I love for this week as a number 2 running back, Kyle Monangai. So if he's out there, I would start him this week against the Bengals based on what his usage have been in tandem with DeAndre Swift. I think you got to look at Trey Benson, obviously, because what his upcoming season can be, rest of the season can be, when he gets back from injury. You mentioned Travis Hunter. Obviously, he's arguably the best receiver to go get, but you have Khalil Shakir. Well, he's above 80%. I'm sorry. You have Rashid Shaheed coming off a strong game with the potential of getting traded. You have Jacoby Myers, potential of getting traded. You mentioned Chris Godwin. I'm going to take him over Tez Johnson if both are available. They're both around the same roster percentage. Kayshon Boutte is interesting because he's gotten 3 games this season with at least 5 targets. And in all 3, he's been 16 PPR points or more. So it would be nice to see what he can do with a little bit more of a target share. But he scored a touchdown in 3 straight games. He's got 4 touchdowns over that span. And Drake May is playing at an MVP level. And then I'm going to go back to Darnell Mooney. I know that probably sounds crazy, but I want to see what it looks like if Drake London doesn't play and Michael Penix starts. So maybe that will help him, but not anybody that's a must-start player. And then it's Gadsden, and for me, Cade Otton at tight end would be the 2 guys to go get if we're talking about the best of the best. I know Cade Otton disappointed last week against New Orleans, but had he scored the touchdown where he fell short, I think we feel a little bit different. And prior to last week, he had 3 straight games of 10 PPR points or more, plus Mike Evans isn't coming back anytime soon.
But who's the best? I mean, who are the top 3 from that group?
It would be Hunter, Benson, and Gadsden.
In that order for you?
No, it would be in order. It would be Gadsden, Hunter, Benson.
Okay. Dave?
Yes.
None of these guys are available in my league. Give me the deep leaguers.
So we already talked about Mac Jones is probably the guy that's going to be most available at quarterback if you're looking for a streamer, and he might not even be the 49ers quarterback. So after him, it's Tua. It's Mariota against Seattle. I don't really love that. I'd rather take my chances with J.J. McCarthy and his wide receivers. Bryce Young, they're optimistic that he'll come back. Those are the quarterbacks that are left. Hopefully you've got a shot at Darnold, Lawrence, one of those other guys, or that Brock Purdy sits for one more week. At running back, Isaiah Davis, already talked about him, 72% available. Best of the best when it comes to stashes. Blake Corum, 73% available. Does he get extra run against New Orleans because the Rams build a huge lead? Other running backs to stash, and that they're all filed under the backup running back who could become the next Tyrone Tracy. Sean Tucker at 86%, although that's probably going to be more short-term than long-term. Dylan Sampson, 89% available. If anything happens to Quinshon Judkins, this is the guy. Tank Bigsby, 88% available. If anything happens to Saquon, he's Philadelphia's guy. And if I had Judkins or Barkley, I would race to get those guys now. Just put them on your bench so you're not having to spend a ton of fab to get them if they do ever get their opportunity. Devin Neal would also make the cut, 76% available. At wide receiver, Shimray DK, I've liked the film a lot. I think that he's going to continue to get targets for however long Calvin Ridley's out. When Ridley comes back, all bets are off. He could go down to 5 targets per game, but he does look good. And you mentioned that Cam Ward has been averaging like 250 yards per game, something like that. He's been making some daring throws, hitting tight windows, and DK's been somebody who benefits from that. Jalen Noel is 86% available. Don't know if he turns into a pumpkin just because Nico Collins comes back. He did have a good game, does offer that offense a little bit of speed, but probably the better wide receiver, maybe even the best wide receiver, and we've talked about him a lot, Adam, is Darius Slayton of the Giants. Had a touchdown called back due to a ticky-tack OPI last week. He's still going to get a ton of opportunities. If the Giants can't run the ball, hopefully they can, because Tyrone Tracy is going to get added in a ton of leagues. But if they can't, or if they fall behind, Slayton's going to end up getting a good amount of targets from the Giants. He is their downfield receiving threat. Other wide receivers that you can stash: Jalen McMillan, Cedric Tillman, Brandon Ayuk, probably in reverse order of what I just said. They can all go on your IR. They're all out there in a bunch of leagues. Ayuk might be the most widely rostered of that trio. Mason Taylor at tight end, 70%. Deep leagues, tight end premium leagues, Gunnar Helm is 98% available. He started to get some run for the Titans really since the coaching change there. And Chico Conco is another player on the Titans who's been on the trade block, so Gunnar Helm can end up being the best tight end there for the rest of the season.
I'm going to throw some Ajay P. Ryan's name in there. Just, you're desperate for a running back. You need someone who might get some touches, maybe score 5 points.
Yay.
P. Ryan is widely available. And all right, thank you for.
P. Ryan outscored Christian McCaffrey this week and Bijan Robinson.
Jeez, unbelievable. Oh gosh, I had a FanDuel lineup this week with I like those the mega busts came in last, but McCaffrey was the headliner for me there.
Oh, I no longer have an undefeated team because I lost with McCaffrey getting outscored by P. Ryan and lost by 5.
In your guillotine league?
No, guillotine's still alive.
Oh, okay. All right. So
I'm sorry, because I said undefeated. No, I did have one undefeated team, non-guillotine.
Let's talk about last night's game. That's impressive, by the way. Kansas City 28 and Washington 7?
7.
Okay. Yeah. Thoughts, Dave? Oh, yeah. I'll tell you, this was one thing encouraging here. This is exactly how we want the snaps and the routes to be distributed for the Chiefs. I know it was not a good game for Xavier Worthy. It was fine. It was okay. But it was basically Kelsey, Worthy, and Rice playing 80+% of the snaps. And the other guys really didn't play that much. So that at least was good. Unfortunately, Worthy 5 catches for 53 yards a week after he goes 3 for 35 on 4 targets. But Dave, give me your thoughts on the Chiefs, and I'll throw it to Jamie for the Commanders.
They're awesome. Mahomes is playing great, and Rice has just come back, and he's been exactly what we thought. Everybody that spent that round 6-7 capital on him to be a stud receiver when he does come back, they're feeling good right now. I think the people who traded for Rashee Rice and didn't draft him, though, they're the ones that feel the best. I don't see him slowing down whatsoever. Worthy is a flex moving forward. Kelsey has to be a top 12 tight end moving forward if he's going to have opportunities to see 8 targets per game. I think it helped that there were so many weird tipped interceptions at the beginning of the game that kind of pushed Kansas City into being just trying to like force the issue a little bit more through the air. And I just think that helped Kelsey get his targets along with Rice in this game. But yes, the concentrated targets are nice. Pacheco's going to continue to lose touchdowns at the goal line to Kareem Hunt. That's always going to be the Achilles heel for Isaiah Pacheco. And the DST is still really good. I don't know if you're going to feel good starting them against Buffalo, but I do think that you're going to enjoy having them on your team for pretty much every other matchup they have against inferior offenses the rest of the way. Obvious statement of the year. But Kansas City is just, they're doing what they're doing. They're going to get Josh Simmons back at left tackle. That will help things theoretically. And 5-3, that they seem a lot better than a team that's 5-3.
Yeah, no kidding. And they didn't even have Trey Smith last night either. You know, their star offensive guard, and they're just rolling. This game was so determined. It was Maybe we didn't know it at the time, but Deebo Samuel, that interception hit him in the face. Great drive, opening drive for Washington, and just killed them.
It's got to be a record for first 5 drives of a game with no punts and no points.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say it was a record for the most accurate passes tipped in the air and picked off. I almost thought I was like, is this a Terry Rozier game? Like, what's going on out there?
Oh boy.
It was not. It was not.
Okay, a couple questions real quick. Jamie, I'll let you talk about the Commanders, but who do you think will be more valuable rest of season? I'm not saying drop this player A for player B, but who do you think will be more valuable rest of season? Xavier Worthy or Tyrone Tracy?
Probably Tracy, just given his position.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just based on how you're framing it, more valuable.
If you could have only one running back from this game, Chiefs Commanders rest of season, who would it be?
Ugh, Kareem Hunt.
Really? I'd
I
say
mean-
Pacheco, but I don't feel good about any of them.
I think I'd still go Bill, but actually, gosh, I mean, Seattle and Detroit next week, he's probably going to stink in those games too.
It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal, and they don't throw him the ball at all, so you don't get that bone. I mean, look what Jeremy McNichols did. So like imagine if that was Krosky Merritt getting those opportunities, we'd say, okay, at least he's getting that. You can't.
So, Jamie, any thoughts on the Commanders? We'll talk about Deebo Samuel.
You got to hope that Jaden Daniels returns. I thought Mariota did some good things for his fantasy production. Obviously, throw the ball very well, and like you said, the Deebo drop kind of set the tone for what the night felt like it was going to go. A lot of design runs, so Mariota may benefit from that. But looking at the matchup that he has coming up, there's no trust in him whatsoever taking on Seattle. Mm-hmm. So if you were hoping for him as a streaming option to get you by with Hurts on a bye or Baker on a bye, like, no, don't do it. And then Deebo, look, he's slowed down. I don't know how healthy he is. Missed last week's game with the heel injury. How much is the whatever explosiveness he had left gone? Because he looked really good early in the season. And I know we kind of had the discussion. Keith, I won't say where I was unless you want to know, but like Heath was like, I'm a little hesitant on Deebo. I know Dave was a little bit more gung ho on Deebo. I was right in between. And then after hearing Dave's take on it, I was like, oh, it sounds like there does seem to be some upside here for him. And now you get McLaurin coming back, and then McLaurin gets hurt, and so now Deebo's back in the same spot. But can you trust him with Mariota taking on Seattle? So it's just frustrating across the board. The one guy that I will go back to for this week is Zach Ertz. And just based on the matchup, I think there's an opportunity for him to be a low-end starter, not anybody that I think you want to trust fully. Clearly, there's a disconnect with him and Mariota this season. 3 straight games that they've been together, 3 straight bad performances. But if McLaurin's out in the matchup, I think he might be the safest pass catcher that they have.
Mm-hmm. Seattle's a really good matchup for tight ends for sure.
Has been.
Okay, that would be Monday Night Football. Let's go to the drop-o-meter. Who are we dropping this week? Let's start with, look at this graphic. Hit me with that drop-o-meter. Bam! Ready? 1, 2, 3. Bam! There it is. Woo! Love it. Mark Andrews, 0 to 10 on the drop-o-meter facing the Dolphins Thursday.
First of all, I love how the drop-o-meter goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. There's no 6 on the drop-o-meter. There's no 9 either on the drop-o-meter.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't notice that.
Well, because
Andrews
6 is
is
afraid
like-
of 7 and 7, 8, 9.
There's no
Right.
9 either.
Oh, that's a great call. Yeah. Okay, Dave.
Does that
Mark
mean that
Andrews.
it's impossible for him to be a 6? I would say that he's like a 6 on the drop-o-meter.
Not
The
on
only reason I would want to hold Andrews is I saw 2 different stories that he's potentially a trade candidate. And so if Baltimore were to trade him, does he get the benefit of going to a maybe pass-friendly team that would use him a little bit more?
On
Okay.
the flip side of that, Lamar's coming back. We know that he's got good chemistry for literally like Lamar's entire career.
Mhm.
So I'm not ready to drop kick him onto the waiver wire just yet.
Keon Coleman.
Is there an 11 on this drop-o-meter? Joe Brady talked this week about how he's been doing a bad job of giving Keon Coleman opportunities, and he needs to do more. And like I was ready to jump through the screen on that when I saw it, but I don't think that there's any optimism whatsoever for starting Keon at this point.
Matthew Golden.
9.
He's up there, 8 or 9.
Oh,
That has not worked out like I thought it would either.
Darnell Mooney.
Oh, he's on the bus with Keon Coleman going to Drop City.
4.
Rashad White.
0.
It's like a 1.
Caleb Williams.
0.
Smaller leagues, you could drop him. He'd be like a 3 or a 4 in
It's
those.
the Bengals this week. Don't drop him.
You're right, but if it's a smaller league, you probably have a better quarterback anyway.
Yeah, but it is the Bengals. Jordan Mason.
0.
Or Aaron Jones. 0, you said?
Yeah.
Do you think Tyrone Tracy will be better than them rest of season?
Assuming that Jones and Mason stay healthy, yes.
Right. All right. All right, let's finish up with another look at the waiver wire and check anything that we may have missed. Joe Flacco, 84% rostered. Would you rather have Joe Flacco or Sam Darnold this week?
Joe, if he's healthy.
Flacco.
Would you rather have Flacco or Purdy rest of season?
Purdy.
I'll say Flacco.
All right, Aaron Rodgers. How do you feel about him? He's got the Colts. I don't know how I feel about Rodgers' matchups. It's not like he has necessarily a bunch of teams that are struggling against quarterbacks, but he has some high-scoring teams on the schedule. So he's got the Colts, then the Bengals. Colts, Chargers, Bengals. That's a good matchup. Bears, usually a good matchup. I actually kind of like his schedule. Dave, how are we feeling about Aaron Rodgers?
I like his schedule too. I just don't know how often he's going to hit any upside when he's not taking on Cincinnati. A lot of these matchups that he's going to have, I'm thinking about the Colts and Chargers specifically. Those are teams with good pass rushes. Cincinnati does not have a good pass rush. So when he doesn't have time, it hurts his upside, basically. So he's okay. Would I rather have Kyler this week? Yes. Would I rather have Caleb Williams this week? Of course.
20 straight points, 20 or more straight points in 3 straight games. And 2 of those were against Cleveland and Green Bay. So he's gotten you enough to be a low-end starter in some pretty tough matchups, and then had the great matchup and was great.
Yeah. Okay, so then there's Kyler Murray this week. After Dallas, Kyler has Seattle and then San Francisco and Jacksonville. CJ Stroud, even without Surtain, I don't think we want to start him.
No, but after this week, though.
Jacksonville, Tennessee, Buffalo. Okay. Then, all right, we talked about Sam Darnold with a great matchup against Washington. Trevor Lawrence with a great matchup against the Raiders, but then he gets Houston after that, and they're number 1 against quarterbacks. Justin Fields, you just never know. Unfortunately, it's Cleveland, New England, and Baltimore, and Atlanta after the bye for Justin Fields. Tua against the Ravens. Yeah, the last 2 quarterbacks against the Ravens stunk. Stafford and Caleb Williams. I really don't know what to make of them. But
they're healthier in their secondary.
I know, but I don't know what that means because
it means they're better than they were when they didn't have a lot of good players in their secondary.
Really? Oh, thanks, Dave. No, I get that they're better, but are they good? Anyway, I don't want to start Tua this week. I'm sure you guys don't either.
I don't want to start Tua this week either, but after this week, it's starting week 11. He gets Washington, then a bye, then New Orleans, then the Jets, then Pittsburgh, then Cincinnati.
All right. Could be a good finish for Tua. JJ McCarthy. He's got Detroit, Baltimore, probably going to have to throw. Then Chicago. Looks like a decent schedule for him. Not that Detroit's a bad defense, but I don't know. I mean, McCarthy, when you consider the fact that he only threw 41 passes in 2 games, but maybe we were a little too hard on him. But I get it.
We don't know how hurt he was in the Falcons game. And again, looking back on it, the Falcons defense, that was probably the start of when, oh my gosh, this team was actually pretty good against opposing quarterbacks until they fell apart against Miami. And so he had the one great quarter against Chicago. And so we'll see how good he is. This is a guy that I think in deeper leagues, if you're dealing with some quarterback issues, you stash and see what develops.
Someone called me Sassy Pants for my sarcasm to Dave. I meant for it to be funny, not sassy. I apologize. I'm bad at funny.
They nailed it.
Good at sassy. Tyler Shuck, super flex leagues, but don't spend a lot. First of all, we don't even know if he's going to be the starter. Secondly, if he is, how good is he going to be? So don't spend a lot of fab, I think, on Shuck. Shadur Sanders, I would throw out there as someone who might get some starts at some point. And then I really am not all out on Mac Jones here. Dave, you talked about him in the deep leagues, but if the Giants are still beat up in the secondary, Giants have been a lot better at home than on the road this year. But if they're still beat up in the secondary, Mac Jones, again, you can't judge him coming off of games against Atlanta and Houston. and he actually had a good fantasy game against Houston.
He did,
but he should be pretty good. He's got a chance if you need help.
I think that's one that you just wait till the end of the week because we're going to get Purdy limited, and then if he's ruled out, Mac Jones probably not going to be a huge priority for a lot of fantasy managers.
Or on the flip side, if Darnold, Lawrence, if those guys are all rostered already, Stroud's rostered already, etc., you can just get Mac Jones now. And if there's like 3 or 4 other quarterbacks on your waiver wire that all look the same to you and are probably gross, then you just get Mac now. And then if you need to make a pivot, you pivot.
Okay, running backs. In the shallow leagues, Tyler Algier is, could always score. But Kyle Monangai is facing a team that has allowed 11.5 or more PPR fantasy points to multiple running backs 4 times already this year. It's crazy. So Monangai, 70% rostered. We talked about Trey Benson and Tyrone Tracy. These guys would probably prefer Benson unless you really need someone this week. But rest of season, we're thinking Benson over Tracy. But it's close. Zonovan Knight could help you this week. Tajay Spears, 9 points, 7 points, and then a big game last week. And then you got Dylan Sampson and Tank Bigsby. You got Isaiah Davis, who we keep talking about. Breece Hall could be traded. And then Devin Neal, again, keep in mind with Kamara a little banged up. Samaje Perine. We've talked about most of these guys. And Emmanuel Wilson is 17% rostered and obviously would be a pretty damn good handcuff if Josh Jacobs gets hurt. And I think Jacobs might still be a little hurt because Wilson had a...
Yes. He technically didn't finish the game. It was Wilson. I mean, it was kind of a blowout situation. I know the final score wasn't a blowout, but he's the one who mopped up at the end, not Jacobs.
You got
Jacobs, I'm finding a way to put Wilson on my bench.
Yeah.
You have potentially 3 guys this week as backup running backs that could help either in good matchups or blowout situations. So Monangai would be my favorite. You have Wilson because of potential of blowing out the Panthers at home. And then you have Blake Corum if the Rams blow out the Saints. So you could be looking at 3 guys that are sitting on your bench that if you're stuck, need to flex, I wouldn't be opposed to starting them.
It's funny because we had Algier in that conversation last week.
Yeah.
And the last thing the Falcons were in were a blowout where they were leading.
No, they were a blowout.
And it was a blowout, but they were getting their points. And he still came through.
Yeah. This is a good question here. Do you think Trey Benson will get his previous workload even when he comes back?
I would think so, but that's hard to judge because we had one game and he got hurt in one game with the only game he played without James Conner. So I would assume we're talking about 80% of the touches.
It might be a little close. I'd say probably like in the neighborhood of like 70% of the touches. But he'll lose passing down snaps to DeMercado or Knight. Probably DeMercado.
He didn't play on 3rd down in that one game where he played, but he still had 5 catches because they throw to their running backs on 1st and 2nd down. Wide receivers, check on Khalil Shakir, Rashid Shaheed, Jacoby Myers. The prize would be Travis Hunter. How about Godwin and Tez Johnson versus Travis Hunter? Who do you guys prefer there?
Hunter.
Kayshon Boutte basically just has to catch a deep ball, and he's good, but he has the best deep ball thrower in football right now. For what it's worth, the Falcons have allowed the fewest deep ball completions in the NFL, but as I mentioned, their defense is beat up. Darnell Mooney, if Drake London's out, Darnell Mooney could still, have a good game, even though he didn't last week. Hopefully Penix is back. It's not an easy matchup, though, against New England. And we like the guys who are more widely available. Troy Franklin, Chimere DK, Darius Slayton. That's the top 3 for Jamie. Franklin, DK, Slayton, Christian Watson after that. Would you drop Golden for Watson?
Yes.
I think so.
Josh Downs, Trey Tucker. Are we feeling like Jacoby Myers is playing this week?
I would guess they're fielding offers left and right or making offers. And, how injured really is Jacoby Myers? We'll find out. So they said going into their bye week that he was expected to return. But do they risk playing him with the potential of injury, knowing that the trade deadline is next Tuesday?
After our waiver wire show, for the record.
And I don't know if Dave mentioned it, but stash Jack Bech if you have an open roster spot.
Yeah, you got a Besh. Trey Tucker or Jacoby Myers? Who would you rather roster?
Tucker
as of now.
Could also pick up Jawan Jennings, who had
Myers to Buffalo would be great. Myers to Pittsburgh would be okay. Myers to New England would be okay. Buffalo, though, would be the best spot.
Juwan Jennings, 64% rostered. He had 7 targets last week. Giants have been a good matchup lately. Jalen Noel, he doesn't play that much, but he's been targeted a lot the last 2 weeks, of course.
I do think that if Berrios is hurt and he left the game last week and Kirk doesn't return, so Dave mentioned this with Nico coming back, I don't think Noel is really impacted by Nico as much. I think Higgins is impacted by Nico as much. I think Noel is kind of tied to Kirk, but I would hope that the Texans, seeing what Noel has done the last couple of games, continue to give him a bigger role.
So what happens to his targets when Nico comes back? That's what
what happens to Nico's targets when Nico comes back, because Nico's targets haven't been there, and we've seen this offense kind of turn into this dink and dunk successful. Those drives against San Francisco were fantastic for them.
It's very.
They just putted their way down the field, and it ended up being successful. So I don't know. I think Noel is not a bad PPR guy. Not a great overall fantasy wide receiver, but low end number 3 guy while Kirk is out. Nico or not, I think he kind of stays the same.
If you could look at the Steelers wide receivers facing the Colts, who give up the 3rd most fantasy points to receivers. Jamie prefers Calvin Austin to Roman Wilson. Wilson's still playing about half the routes, so that's a lot for him, but he's not a full-time player. And Malik Washington caught a touchdown last week. That was cool. And that's
he got 13 targets in his last 2 games, though. So
Mm-hmm.
what we were hoping to see as soon as Tyreek was injured, we're finally seeing it now, potentially.
Yep. A lot of layups, a lot of those gimme targets.
And it is, I guess, maybe more coinciding with the 2 games that Darren Waller has been out.
Yes. And if Nico doesn't play, we'll talk later in the week about Xavier Hutchinson and Jaden Higgins, but who would you prefer between those 2?
Higgins.
Hutchinson.
Tight ends, Gadsden would be the prize if available. Kate Otten, I think, would be a pretty decent consolation prize. He's got double-digit PPR fantasy points in 3 straight games. Yeah, 3 of his last 4. He only had 8 last week. Theo Johnson. You like Theo Johnson this week?
I don't mind Theo Johnson this week. I mean, the 49ers prior to last week, it was like 4 straight tight ends, 10 or more PPR points. So they've been struggling a little bit. They've talked about this going into the matchup with Dalton Schultz about how Fred Warner's replacement, not great in coverage. And so there's an opportunity for Theo Johnson. I mean, look, 5 starts now with Jackson Dart, 3 good ones. The 2 bad ones were against Philly.
Sure. Colston Loveland is Jamie's favorite of the guys who are widely available. Would you rather have Loveland or Theo Johnson this week?
Theo.
And Dave likes Juwan Johnson better than Loveland, and I'm better than Theo.
Yep. 1 week thing.
The thing, I mean, it's not a 1 week thing for Juwan. It's he's now played 8 games. I don't think they've had to buy it. So 5 of those games, he's had at least 7 targets. In all 5, he's been 10.1 PPR points or more. So when he's
done that each of the last 2 weeks too.
And he's got 15 targets in his last 2 games. So when he's been involved, he's been good. It's just for whatever reason, those 3 games they went away from him. It was, it coincided with Taysom Hill and Foster Moreau coming back, but they're still playing. And so Johnson's still getting his production the last couple games.
Which Browns tight end would you rather stash?
Fannin
is probably
because Njoku could get traded.
Right. And we don't know what situation he'd go to.
Okay.
But I wouldn't mind stashing either one. You want to put Fannin first, that's fine.
Mason Taylor's an okay stash. Gunnar Helm. Maybe Okonkwo gets traded, but Gunnar Helm. They want to get
like deep league
involved. Yeah.
But Okonkwo also, we keep talking about this with Dalton Schultz prior to the receiver injuries and TJ Hawkinson prior to stinking last week. Okonkwo's been, I think it's like 8 or 9 PPR points in 3 of his last 4. He had a 0.
8.8 PPR points in 3 of his past 4.
Yeah, I mean, that's, when you're stuck.
Yeah. What about Dalton Kincaid? Who would you drop Dalton Kincaid for? Gadsden?
It's probably.
I would rather start Loveland this week than Kincaid.
Whoa.
Not me.
That's with or without Cole Kmet, or just without Cole Kmet?
That's without Cole Kmet.
Okay. Kincaid has the Chiefs. I actually think that makes sense. I mean, the Chiefs are very good against tight ends. Okay. And then if Mark Andrews gets traded, you're going to want Isaiah Likely on your team. DSTs, we like the Rams, Seahawks, Lions, Jaguars, kickers, Brandon McManus, Kaimi Fairbairn, Andres Borregales, and Jake Bates. And that's it for Fantasy Football today. We will talk to you at 1 p.m. Eastern on CBS Sports Network, and tomorrow with some trade talk. Have a great day, everybody. See you then.